Joaquin El Chapo Guzman Loera is one of the top drug kings or drug kingpins in Mexico. And he's actually the head of the Sinaloa drug cartel. And Forbes has listed him as the 701st richest man alive.
Wow.
Okay, he owns about $1 billion. And he's a very dangerous guy. In fact, the U.S. is asking for him dead or alive, and they're willing to pay $5 million for it. Now, the reason why he's in the news today is because he says that he owes his entire wealth, okay, to President Obama and those who support the drug war. In fact, let me read you his exact quote. He says, "I couldn't have gotten so stinking rich without George Bush Jr., Ronald Reagan, even El Presidente Obama. None of them have the cojones to stand up to all the big money that wants to keep this stuff illegal. From the bottom of my heart, I want to say, gracias, amigos. I owe my whole empire to you."
Damn! Wow, that, yeah, I mean, this is respect. Well, you know what, though? You do have to respect that quote. That's a serious-ass quote. He's like, oh, you're going to put a bounty on my head. Well, gracias, amigos, for the $1 billion your clown-ass policies put in my pocket, right? You know, war on drugs? You idiots, you made me rich. You made me stinking rich. And he's absolutely right about that. And, you know, of course, Reagan started it. The Bushes loved the war on drugs. But he's right. President Obama is continuing that same senseless war on drugs. And the private companies that he's talking about, among others, are private security companies that are supposed to chase him down, that are contracted out to the Mexican government, contracted out to our own government. All those guys make a ton of money off of the war on drugs. That's part of why we haven't stopped this incredibly senseless project. And look, here is the guy who's most wanted in the war on drugs. And he's like, and he made $1 billion off of it. And he's telling you, you guys are idiots. Of course it's never gonna work.
And what's interesting is you're seeing this huge shift of culture in Mexico right now, because the people with the power, people who are more powerful than politicians and police enforcement, the most powerful people in the country are made up of leaders of the drug cartels. So as a result, you're seeing more and more young people aspiring to be members of the drug cartels because they want to make that money. They want to have that power. You know, there are people in Mexico, of course, I'm not making a blanket statement, not all people in Mexico, but there are definitely youth in Mexico that are looking at this guy right now thinking, he's living a pretty good life. I want to be him. I want to be the 701st richest person on the Forbes list.
And he just bitch slapped every American president of the last 30 years.
Yeah.
And added gracias amigos on top. So, I mean, look,
by the way,
what's interesting about that quote also is that, you know, he's in essence telling you, you shouldn't let me do this illegally. Like, you're stupid. If you were smart, you would just legalize it and put me out of business, right? But you're so painfully stupid, I could tell you that, and you're not going to do it anyway.
What's interesting is the war on drugs not only makes him wealthy, it makes politicians wealthy, it makes the private contractors wealthy, it makes everyone wealthy. The only people who lose are the 30,000 people that were murdered in Mexico between 2006 and 2011.
And the millions of people we've got sitting rotten in jail because they smoke pot or whatever else that they smoke, okay? And so we, of course, the poor, the middle class, the average citizens of Mexico and America, we lose, but the guys in power always win.